The shocking story begins in a city where there is never daylight, and it is always dark. In this city, exactly at 12 o'clock, strange things happen that make everyone fall asleep. It seems as though they have all been paralyzed for some reason, and every citizen is stuck in their position. A few minutes later, when they regain consciousness, all their memories are erased. Why and how these strange things are happening to them is a deep mystery that will be revealed to us in time. We are then introduced to a man named John. John opens his eyes in an unfamiliar place and has no memory of his past. He doesn't even know his name or how he got there. He starts looking around, hoping to find something familiar that will help him understand what is happening. John quickly puts on his clothes and grabs a briefcase that was lying in front of him. The briefcase had an H written on it, and inside were photos of a beach called Cell Beach. Suddenly, after seeing the photos, John begins to recall some memories. He starts having visions of the same beach, but they are all blurry. John is still confused when, out of nowhere, he receives a call. On the other end, it's Dr. Schreiber. Dr. Schreiber tells John that he has been part of an illegal experiment, and warns him to stay alert because there are strange people following him who might be trying to capture him. John is already terrified, and this information only makes him more anxious. He quickly tries to leave the place with the briefcase, but then he notices a dead body lying in front of him. It's the body of an unknown woman, someone John doesn't recognize, but there are knives lying around, and since John was in the room, suspicion will fall on him. In a panic, he tries to flee. At this point, three large, strange-looking people, whose faces are not clearly visible, enter the hotel, apparently looking for John. As John is leaving the hotel, he notices that all the other people are lying motionless, as if dead. It's as if they were all frozen in place. The clock shows exactly 12 o'clock, and John has no idea what is going on. His mind begins to unravel further. That's why he took the briefcase and left. Minutes later, everyone returned to their real senses, but their previous memories had been erased. John started heading to a safe place where he wouldn't be in danger. Meanwhile, inside the hotel, the three large agents appeared, inquiring about John. They had captured the hotel owner, but the owner didn't know who John was. Out of frustration, the three agents killed the man by injecting him with something strange, ending his life. We are then introduced to a woman named Emma, a singer. Emma suddenly receives a call from Dr. Schreiber, who asks her to come to his laboratory. It is here that we learn Emma is none other than John's wife. When Emma arrives at Dr. Schreiber's lab, he informs her that her husband's life is in danger, and if John is found, she must contact him immediately, as saving John is crucial. Emma is shocked by this information. Meanwhile, we are shown several police officers, including their head member, Bombet, at the crime scene where a murder occurred in the hotel. Bombet reports that murders are increasing, and each victim's body has a circular mark, indicating a serial killer with a purpose behind the murders. Bombet learns that John was in the room where the murder happened, so he goes to speak with Emma. Bombet firmly tells her that her husband will be punished for his wrongdoing, and wherever he is, they will catch him. On the other side, John is feeling a strange glow on his hands, as if something is transferring into his body. Suddenly, he notices a huge advertisement board, the same one for Cell Beach, which is the card he has. Confused, John climbs up to it. As John looked at it, suddenly the three large agents, who called themselves the Strangers, appeared in front of him. They each held a sword and moved directly toward John to capture him. One of the Strangers uses his ability to put John to sleep, but these powers had no effect on John. The three of them were shocked, as their abilities always worked on humans, but not on John. Despite this, they continued to move forward to capture him. At that moment, John focused his mind and used a strange telekinetic power, causing the three strangers to fall into a deep daze. The vibrations from his power spread far and wide, giving John the chance to escape. Meanwhile, we are shown a hideout where a colony of strangers resides. They have learned about John and his unique abilities, his telekinetic powers and the fact that their abilities do not work on him. They knew that John had been part of an illegal experiment, but he had escaped, and now he was free. The strangers were determined to catch him at any cost because he was more powerful than them. They feared that if John learned about his powers and rebelled, their entire colony would be destroyed. Back at Emma's house, she is shocked to see John standing in front of her. She had found him based on the address from his driver's license. As soon as Emma meets John, she becomes very emotional and asks where he has been all this time. However, John does not respond, as he has forgotten everything about her. Emma clearly tells him that he is accused of many murders, and if he cannot justify them, everyone will consider him the killer. Hearing this, John gets scared and leaves. Meanwhile, we see the hideout of the strangers and their plans to capture John. At the hideout, the leader of the strangers, named Dr. Book, steps forward. We learn that Dr. Schreiber, who had initially spoken to John, was also working with the strangers. Dr. Schreiber was the head of the strangers' technical department, overseeing all experiment-related activities. With the clock about to strike 12 o'clock, the strangers stand before their leader, and strange vibrations begin spreading everywhere. These vibrations are broadcast precisely at 12 o'clock and spread throughout the city, putting everyone to sleep. People, no matter what they were doing, become paralyzed and fall asleep on the spot. Even vehicles and trains come to a halt. However, something strange happens. These waves have no effect on John. As John travels on the road, he sees everyone sleeping and tries to wake them up, but unfortunately, he is unsuccessful. This drives John even further into confusion, as he still doesn't know the truth. Meanwhile, strange structures begin to emerge from the ground all around the city. John spots many strangers, including Dr. Schreiber, who are injecting something into the minds of the sleeping people. These injections are given to erase their memories and make them live a new life once they wake up. This is done to everyone, as the strangers aim to wipe out their pasts and control them. Within minutes, as people's memories are erased, the leader of the strangers declares that it is time to focus on John. They must capture him at all costs. Dr. Schreiber then creates a liquid that contains all of John's memories. He quickly prepares it and takes it to Mr. Book, their leader. Dr. Schreiber explains that if this injection is administered to someone, they will have John's memories inside them, allowing them to easily track him. However, the biggest question is, who will administer this injection? After some thought, one of the strangers named Mr. Hand steps forward and takes responsibility for the task. Dr. Schreiber quickly injects the liquid into Mr. Hand's brain, and soon, all of John's memories are transferred into his mind. Now, Mr. Hand can easily track John and capture him. Meanwhile, John is at a metro station searching for the address of Cell Beach. Despite asking several people, he cannot find the address. Just then, John notices a card with the name Carl Harrison on it. The initials KH match the ones on the briefcase, and John realizes there must be some connection. He decides to visit Carl Harrison, a senior man who seems somewhat surprised to see John, as though he recognizes him. Carl invites John to sit down and begins explaining. He reveals that John's childhood was very strange and that he possessed special powers from an early age, which attracted the attention of researchers. Many experiments were conducted on John, but he managed to escape. John then asks Carl why there is never daylight in this place, and why, after 12 o'clock, everyone becomes paralyzed. Carl does not answer the question right away but tells John to rest. However, it is soon revealed that Carl had already called the police officers to inform them that John was there, meaning he was attempting to trap him. Inspector Bombet learns of this and heads straight to capture John. The shocking part is that Mr. Hand, along with several other strangers, has arrived, all of whom now have John's memories in their minds, making it even easier for them to track and capture him. With the help of the liquid, Mr. Hand and his fellow strangers track John down. When John realizes that Carl has betrayed him, he tries to escape as quickly as possible. First, John faces off against Mr. Hand and several of his stranger companions, each possessing different powers. However, John is no easy match. Using his telekinetic powers, he misleads them and manages to flee. This is the first time John truly feels fear, as so many strangers are after him. It seems they have surrounded him, preparing to capture him. Just then, a car pulls up in front of him, stopping. To John's surprise, Emma is inside and pulls him into the car. The car is being driven by none other than Inspector Bombet. Together, they quickly take John to a safe place, away from the strangers. Mr. Hand is left empty-handed, having failed to capture John. Now, seated in front of Inspector Bombet, John is asked about the murders and other crimes, with the inspector wanting to know who is behind them. Without any justification from John, the inspector is inclined to believe that John is the culprit. However, instead of answering the inspector's questions, John asks about Cell Beach, wondering if the inspector knows anything about it. The inspector admits that the name sounds familiar, and he may know something about it. To convince the inspector, John uses his telekinetic powers to lift several books into the air, demonstrating the strange, supernatural events happening around them. He explains that these events are definitely supernatural in nature and reveals information about the strangers, who also possess similar abilities. After witnessing this, the inspector starts to trust John. Meanwhile, Mr. Hand and his strangers are shown entering the police station, using their powers to put all the officers to sleep. They discover that John has been captured and held in custody. However, when they check the prison, they find that John is no longer there. Inspector Bombet had taken John with him, and John soon finds himself at Dr. Schreiber's place, eager to learn the truth. However, Dr. Schreiber pulls out a gun and points it at John. Just then, Inspector Bombet steps in, pointing his own gun at Dr. Schreiber to protect John. With no other options left, Dr. Schreiber is forced to sit down and explain. John demands to know what is really happening. The three of them get into a car, and Dr. Schreiber reluctantly agrees to take John to Cell Beach. As they drive, Dr. Schreiber repeatedly warns that going to Cell Beach is dangerous, as their lives would be at risk. But John doesn't listen and insists on continuing. The road ahead is flooded, so they leave the car and board a boat, slowly heading toward Cell Beach. During the journey, Dr. Schreiber reveals a shocking truth to John: the strangers are actually an alien civilization. They originally lived on a different planet, but when their planet was destroyed and they were on the brink of extinction, a colony of strangers moved to Earth. However, when they arrived on Earth and saw humans, who had rapidly growing populations, they were shocked. The most significant difference between humans and these aliens was that while humans had souls and spirits, the aliens did not. This was the key thing that the aliens wanted to understand: how souls worked. To study this, the aliens created a special city where they captured various humans and experimented on them. Every night at 12 o'clock, they would emit sound waves that would put people to sleep. During this time, they injected a special liquid into the bodies of the sleeping humans, erasing their past memories and replacing them with new ones. The strangers studied these changes to better understand how souls functioned and to explore the differences between humans and their own kind. John, still reeling from the truth, simply asked Dr. Schreiber why it is always night here. Dr. Schreiber explained that the strangers hated light, perhaps because it weakened them. That's why they created a city where the sun never rises. The three of them continued their journey by boat and soon reached Cell Beach, but they still couldn't understand what was happening there. As they approached, they noticed a massive poster of Cell Beach on a wall. John insisted on breaking down the wall, but Dr. Schreiber warned them not to. However, John and Inspector Bombet broke through it, only to discover that everything beyond the wall was falling into space, meaning there was no path forward. They were floating in a vast, empty space. John's mind was spinning, as he couldn't comprehend where he was. Soon after, Mr. Hand arrived with several strangers and, to their horror, they saw that Emma had been captured. Mr. Hand began blackmailing John, threatening to kill Emma if he didn't comply. Inspector Bombet tried to fight the strangers, but they were thrown into the vast space, dying from lack of oxygen. Before he perished, the inspector caught a glimpse of a large city floating in space. He realized it was not a city but a spaceship traveling deep into space. With no other options left, the strangers captured John and Dr. Schreiber, taking them to their hideout. The strangers were ecstatic because they planned to extract John's soul, which they believed was the most powerful among humans. In a short time, their leader, Mr. Book, arrived and took control of Dr. Schreiber, keeping him captive. Dr. Schreiber called the others in front and instructed them to inject the same liquid they had used on others into John's mind, so that his soul could be divided among all the strangers. Dr. Schreiber, having kept John for his real-life work, knew that once the task was done, the strangers would kill him. To make it happen, Dr. Schreiber quickly changed the syringe and injected John with the liquid that contained his memories. As soon as the injection was administered, John's past memories began to flood back: how he had grown up near Cell Beach, with Dr. Schreiber teaching him and providing him with an excellent education, knowing that John would do great things in the future. One by one, the memories came rushing back, and in the end, John heard Dr. Schreiber's voice urging him to use his power to destroy the strangers and take control of the entire city. Moments later, John's eyes opened, and he was free. Using his telekinetic powers, he started shaking the strangers violently. Most of the strangers were sent flying, but Mr. Book remained standing. Mr. Book, too, attacked with his own powers, and it became clear that John and Mr. Book had the same kind of power. They began to fight, flying through the air, both with an unlimited amount of energy. As Mr. Book fired a sword at John, John countered the attack and sent the sword back at him. Mr. Book never expected that, and the sword struck him, killing him. John had defeated the leader of the strangers on his own. Afterward, John went directly to Dr. Schreiber and asked him what to do next. Dr. Schreiber explained that until the entire system set up by the strangers was destroyed, the memories of the people could not be restored. So, John used his telekinetic powers and regeneration energy to continuously fire waves, altering the entire structure of the city created by the strangers. Using his abilities, John added essential elements to the city that humans need to build a civilization. He created bodies of water around the city and designed structures where humans could comfortably live. He also recreated Cell Beach, where he had lived, and most importantly, he brought sunlight to the city. By rotating the sun, he spread its rays across the city, effectively removing the threat posed by the strangers over humanity. In the end, we see John and Emma sitting on Cell Beach, starting a new life together, marking the beginning of a new chapter. And that's where our story ends.